If you were a wrestling fan in any capacity in the early to mid 2000s, it's safe to say you were pretty spoiled. Coming off the iconic 90s Monday Night Wars, the 2000s was home to the rise of the likes of John Cena, Randy Orton, Batista, Brock Lesnar and Rey Mysterio, on top of classic veterans like Triple H, The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, The Rock and Hulk Hogan all hanging around. And whilst WWE TV was brilliant around this time, wrestling fans had something else taking up their time: video games, which the company began focusing on heavily after the release of Here Comes the Pain in 2003. The early WWE games that released had their ups and downs, and although there was some greatness sprinkled in there, it wasn't until November 2004 that wrestling games truly hit their stride, and for a near decade became the model for every other annual franchise to look up to. In 2004, THQ and Yuke's released Smackdown VS Raw, marking the beginning of a series that me and millions of other WWE fans would end up putting hours and hours of our lives into. Looking at the way modern annualized franchises like WWE 2K and FIFA release near copy and pasted, underwhelming, microtransaction riddled bore fests every year, it's almost unbelievable to think of how Yuke's would year after year innovate and build on this series in unique and creative ways that made each game stand out from the last. But before we get into that, let's just look at the core gameplay of these games, which despite some changes stayed relatively similar over its 7-year lifespan. As opposed to the wrestling games that came before and those that would come after, Smackdown vs. Raw was unique in the way it perfectly balanced arcadey enjoyable gameplay with an immersive realistic style. This is largely thanks to the ridiculous amount of animations each game had, not leaving any possible wrestling moves on the table. Strikes, grapples, running attacks, top rope moves, suplexes, power bombs, hurricane ranas, drop kicks, chair shots, crowd fighting, signatures, finishers, submissions, all with seemingly hundreds of variations, all finely crafted and animated to feel impactful, all centering around a robust, fast-paced movement system that was polished and never for a moment dull. Oh, and graphically, every single one of these games looked absolutely gorgeous. This near flawless foundation of gameplay each game was built on was exactly what Yuke's needed, as after they had that perfected, they were able to focus on the thing that made each Smackdown vs. Raw game so memorable, so replayable and so fun: the modes. It began with 24/7 mode, a form of my career that was unlike anything we had really seen, with actual storylines integrated in for you to play through as you worked your way through a WWE calendar year. Then we got a mode that I'll never forgive 2K for never bringing back: GM mode, an alternative to 24/7 mode, where instead of being a wrestler, you become the promoter, booking matches, creating rivalries, setting up promos and advertising events, trading superstars with other brands, all in an attempt to boost your ratings so that you could get the main event of WrestleMania. Now, I'm the type of person who plays the league mode in every sports game, the type of person that makes fantasy sports trades and rewrites movies and TV shows, so when I tell you that I put at least 200 hours into GM mode, I'm telling the complete truth. And if you're a micromanaging nerd like me, you probably loved this mode just as much. But Yuke's was only getting started in 2008 with GM mode, because although we tragically lost it in future games, it was replaced with something genuinely incredible: Road to WrestleMania. Road to WrestleMania was essentially a story mode for these games, allowing the player to take the shoes of a WWE superstar and watch their journey to the grandest stage of them all. And this wasn't just some generic career mode. No, this was tailored individual storylines, complete with voice acting from the actual wrestlers themselves, which was surprisingly good in all honesty. Over the course of 4 games, we got 20 unique storylines that we could play through, adding hours and hours of content to each respective game, hours of content which was genuinely fun and interesting. These storylines had variety to them. You could be fighting a women's Royal Rumble 8 years before we had one in real life. You could be getting in car crashes as Rey Mysterio. You could be fighting off zombies. You could be using time machines, or you could be defeating The Undertaker's streak. There was so much variety to these storylines, and some of them were genuinely better than the storylines we were getting in the real WWE at the time. Oh, and the best Road to WrestleMania technically wasn't in a Smackdown vs. Raw game, but I've got to give some respect to Jacob Cass in WWE 12. He is an absolute king. Although Road to WrestleMania was kind of the focus of these games from 2009 to 12, Yuke's also kept improving a bunch of other modes. To name a few, they added and built on match types, they continued growing the multiplayer, and they crafted one of the best creation suites in all of gaming, with a near limitless create a superstar mode being supplemented with create a finisher, create an entrance, create an arena, and even create a story. It truly was every wrestling fan's dream. You could let your imagination run wild, and when a community sharing option was added, it just improved these games' replayability factor and extended their lifespan almost infinitely. And that's without even mentioning universe mode or any of the other countless great modes that these games held. The Yuke's WWE games from 2006 to 2014, more specifically the Smackdown vs. Raw games, will always have a place in my heart. They made up a huge part of my childhood, and for that I'll always be nostalgic for them. But this love goes so much further than nostalgia, because these games from the very first to the very last were all legitimately great in their own right. Yuke's took an annualized sports franchise and made it one of the most anticipated releases every single year. They were able to make 8 different wrestling games that all stood independently memorable from one another, and they were able to create a franchise the likes of which will probably never be replicated. So as WWE games and annualized franchises as a whole continue their long-running downward trajectory, I think we should look back at these innovative franchises from the 2000s and give them the respect and appreciation that they more than deserve. So that is the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy, it would really be appreciated and would really help me out if you could hit like. And if you're new here and want to see more content like this, make sure to subscribe with post notifications turned on so you don't miss another video like it. Also, make sure to tell me what you think of the Smackdown vs Raw games or any other wrestling game for that matter in the comments down below. Tell me your childhood stories, tell me all that good stuff. If you want to support the channel, my Patreon link is in the description. Any little bit helps so much and, you know, keeps this channel going. Shout out to all the patrons. Thank you so much. You already know how much I appreciate you, but yeah, just thank you again. And with all that being said, I've been Joe, aka Founder Scarab, and I'll see you in the next one.